Okay, so happy to have you all here. Thank you. And I'm very proud to open our CEER annual conference. And it is not by chance that we put it on the 25th of June 2025 to celebrate our 25th anniversary. And we are very proud here to have a lot of even one founding member or several founding members. But in particular, I welcome Jorge Vasconcelos, who is at the origin of CEER, and I just asked him before we started here how many members were there at this time, and he told me it were 10. And now today we have 39 members and observers. So we quadrupled, and hopefully we stay on for the next 25 years. I don't know how many members we will have then, but of course this is a good success story, I would say, and it also shows how important it is for all NRAs, for all independent NRAs, because this is the, let's say, the conditio sine qua non that you can become a member or an observer of CEER, that you are an independent energy regulator. And I think we cannot highlight this enough, given the current situation where we see a lot of pressure on the independence of NRAs. And let me say a few words on the tasks of NRAs and on the importance of cooperation and collaboration of NRAs to support the independence of all of us and also, of course, to reach harmonized implementation to promote the internal energy market, which is so important for the benefit of all of us here in Europe. And I think that is something that we really need to value and to highlight. Because the founding idea of CEER was that we don't need to reinvent the wheel 25 times, but rather we can exchange our experiences in implementing the energy legislation in day-to-day practice and see what worked and what did not work and what are the regulatory best practices that can then be spilled over to others and that help ultimately developing the internal energy market. And this was the original idea, and it's still valid because we still are in progress and towards developing the internal energy market much further. And additionally, we have become, as we have a lot more tasks now, so that energy regulation has become more complex. So we have got a lot of new tasks during the energy crisis, not only economic regulation, but also security and energy preparedness, security preparedness, and also looking at ensuring that consumers are not, let's say, left unprotected and that energy stays affordable for all of us. I think there are a lot of lessons learned during the crisis that were then translated into the legislation, and I think that is important here to learn these lessons and to be aware that regulation, economic regulation, is more than just looking at making sure that the energy system works. It should work for the consumers in the end and, of course, for all users. That, I think, is an important element that we should bear always in mind. The other point that I also want to raise and to highlight is that we have an energy system, and the whole idea of the liberalization of the energy system and of energy markets was indeed to benefit and to bring together the benefits of well-functioning markets together with well-regulated monopolies, natural monopolies, and in order to have the best of both worlds. And it is exactly the energy regulator that is at the heart of this process. But it is important not to forget one side or the other. So we need both to bring out the benefits in the end. Of course, there are also, from the, let's say, economic regulation and the responsibility at the core of the regulator originally of regulating the grid efficiently, we also still have, and even more today, have a task that goes further than just keeping a stable system running, if I may say so. Nowadays, we have also to ensure that the investment is for the energy transition and for integrating renewables into the system is done efficiently and, of course, also remunerated accordingly. And that is something that, again, goes beyond what was originally, let's say, our plan or our life or our mandate. So we have not only more work on the side of the let's say, bringing benefits to the consumers, managing a very complex system, but also ensuring on the core side of the energy system, of the energy grid, namely that it is that the investments are made and that also the current capacity of the grid is used optimally, is used efficiently and optimally, so that you can save also on investment on the other side. And if new investment is needed to integrate renewables, then again it should be made efficiently. So that is, let's say, the principles that we have, the regulatory principles that we have are still there, the predictable, transparent, etc. And we should not forget them, even if we have new challenges and need, of course, to adapt our tools to manage these new challenges. And I mentioned one that came from the lessons learned from the energy crisis, and the other one is, of course, to be part of promoting the energy transition towards a decarbonized energy system. And that also includes, of course, having the pushing for demand-side response and flexibility as a whole. So again, the system gets more complex, but there are some elements that stay there and that also on which our regulatory system is based, and that we need to adapt to the necessary situations and to the necessary challenges that we see. And let's say the latest challenges that we see are, of course, the geopolitical challenges, which again bring more more tasks to us, but also more pressure from the policy side. And that is why I mentioned at the beginning that the independence of regulators is so important, because otherwise you will not be able to have an effective regulation that delivers on all those objectives that I have mentioned, because only the regulator is able to balance the different targets well, and to make sure that there are, let's say, non-vested, that there's no vested interest, but that there is a neutral and public interest pursued with the best knowledge that we have and the shared knowledge that we have. I think that is important again to ensure and to mention. And if I come to an end, I mentioned already the importance that we have of independent regulators, and the second pillar is for sure the collaboration and cooperation within CEER for all regulators to be able to exercise their mandate in the best possible way, bringing forward Europe as a whole. I think this is something that we should that we really should keep in mind. And we are about to update our midterm strategy, the new CEER strategy for 2026-2029, putting exactly these elements in the focus and adjusting the priorities slightly in order to keep track and to take the challenges that we face nowadays, and I think no one of us would ever have thought about the multitude of tasks that we have received. So, of course, in these 25 years, there was a lot of change, but I think like any, let's say, old person, you have the impression that the change is coming faster and faster, and that you have to keep up more and more to keep track of it. And that is, let's say, my birthday wish, that we will in CEER succeed in keeping track with all the challenges and in staying in this close cooperation among regulators in order to ensure that we are at the center of good economic regulation and of sharing best practices among us for the benefit of the European internal energy market, and ultimately, of course, for users that are in the center of our work. Final word, we are as I said at the beginning, at the center of CEER and regulation in general is the implementation of legislation. And again, here as well, I would like to stress how important in these times of changes, of challenges, it is to have to implement the legislation properly before new legislation is arriving. And I hope that's our, let's say, plea as advocating the European Commission and the co-legislators, of course, that we can have the time to implement, of course, speedily and timely the new tools that we have before and see how they work and how they impact, so that we can learn and what to improve before we have to change anything again. So thanks a lot for your attention, and I hand over now to Mechthild.
Many thanks, Annegret, and thank you very much for inviting me here to that special celebration, and happy birthday to CEER for 25 years. It's already an age where I think you are rather mature, and it's still young enough to have a lot of energy and continue the good cooperation. For the Commission, of course, CEER has and will be an excellent interlocutor. It's really crucial to deal with all the regulators, independent energy regulators, and have an organization who represents those growing as we speak is of very valuable input for us. So now from the Commission, we just started 7 months ago a new Commission with a new mandate of President von der Leyen, with a new Commissioner for Energy and a Vice President for Energy Competition and others. So I think it's a timely opportunity to see what has already been presented in the last couple of months, but also what's coming up, and I will try to cover those aspects. Before I do, let me remind, and I think that is very much agreed from what I just heard, our 3 key objectives is really the combination of sustainability, affordability, and also security. And I will come back to those, because as we speak, I think competitiveness aspects and also energy prices are really high on the agenda in a number, if not all, our EU member states. So this is something our work is focusing on. How can we deliver on high energy prices? How can we deliver on the commitments? How can we deliver on implementation? I fully agree what Annegret just said, that we need to implement what we have, but also taking into account the geopolitical context, which is extremely uncertain also from an energy point of view. It has an impact on prices, if it's the war in Ukraine or the more recent developments in Middle East. We are analyzing that and monitoring daily if there, and what is the impact of an eventual further escalation of those. So we don't panic, but I think energy and the geopolitical context we need to closely monitor. So we came up with a Clean Industrial Deal, with the action plan on affordable energy, and in a way, this is for this mandate a lot what we need to focus on. Affordable energy, as I said before, competitiveness for our business, but also for our consumer is really key. So I would like to highlight then, out of that context, 3 main messages, which I'm sure you will also discuss this afternoon in the different discussion rounds. First, the focus on consumer. I think when we speak about energy prices and energy cost, we need to look how can we help member states to keep consumer prices affordable. It's really rather crucial that we look at the system cost, how can we get it down, and that we could look at the wholesale price, of course, but also at the retail prices. And to lower energy prices for our consumers, we have a couple of tools either in the EMD, in the electricity market design, and they are taken from that partly in the action plan on affordable energy. So there are tools to reduce electricity taxes. In some of our member states, gas is taxed less than electricity. In some of our member states, in the final bill, there are non-energy elements. So we really work with our EU member states that they look at the tax issues and also how to shift levies that finance energy policies to the general budget. We will also shortly issue guidance on network tariff methodologies, which is there also to look how to make our networks more efficient and therefore make our electricity bills more affordable. We just launched an open public consultation on the upcoming Citizens' Energy Package, which should come later this year, and it addresses energy poverty. We still have more than 40 million people in energy poverty, but also empowerment of citizens to participate in the energy transition and retail markets to deliver affordable energy for all. Needless to say that also here, regulators have a strong role, both in consumer protection, we have seen that during the crisis in particular, but also to make consumers more active, and we are very keen to hear later what you have in mind here. Energy efficiency as a tool to lower energy bills is crucial. We recently had a number of conferences, the Global Conference on Energy Efficiency, where our commissioner announced 10 areas for energy efficiency, be it on the building side, product side, financing side, where we can work together also here as one element to lower the bill for consumers. A second key aspect is, of course, the energy markets. I fully agree what Annegret said, that we need to deepen further our energy markets. We have come a long way since the last 25 years. And I think we have still some way to go to do a deepening of the energy markets, also in relation, not only, but also in relation to the cost or price issue. In doing that, again, implementation of what has been agreed, implementation of the electricity market design and the Renewables Directive, that is crucial because we have here the possibility to promote stability, which is, I think, from a perspective, certainly for industry, it's not only the cost, but also the volatility, so a certain stability through long-term contracts, but also accelerate permitting, reinforcing our grids, and I come to that, and boosting flexibility. We have really to look a bit, I think, with more push and fresh eyes, how we can deliver better on flexibility. In the context, as what I said, in the implementation, we need a further electricity market integration, but also to see how the increasing share of renewables, we had 2 or 3 boom years of renewables, wind and solar in particular, but that means also we need to think even harder on integration of renewables and flexibility so we can deliver on the prices or on the reduction of wholesale electricity costs. There are very good studies on that, but we need really to act together. There will not be a lot of new legislation, as was just thing, but I think we have one still ahead of us this year, which is the grids package. We all know how important the grids are, the networks, not only the cross-border, not only the transmission, but also the distribution networks. So in that context, we are preparing right now this European grids package. There's also an open online public consultation until the 5th of August, and all your input is very much welcome. We already got some good input, and of course we will discuss that further, but I think we are very keen to hear your voice on that grids package. It will cover programming and planning. It will cover the optimal use of existing grids as well. As we know, we need new ones, but we also need further optimizing, digitalizing the existing grids. And there is also the issue of cost sharing and benefits, cost-benefits sharing, which is an element where we discuss since some years in one region, the North Sea Energy Corporation, but also that has to apply to other regions, and we need to develop further. These are just some ideas of our grids package. We also like to hear your bold ideas if you want to change even further, so that is welcome. And in that context, we very much commend CEER's work on smart grids indicators. In the context of energy markets, as I said, we need to go deeper, but we also need to work even better together with the 27 member states, but also TSOs, regulators, DSOs. And that's why we have announced in the Affordable Action Plan, Energy Action Plan, the Energy Union Task Force. In fact, it was an idea from the Prime Minister of Greece who wrote to us, and we launched it a week ago in the margins of the Energy Council in Luxembourg. So a first meeting will take place under the Danish EU presidency, beginning of September. And the idea is really cooperation, working together on implementation, breaking down barriers to the completion of the energy market. So it's really as concrete as it can be, chaired by our commissioner with the member states, and the format is flexible to invite also experts and stakeholders depending on the topics. So we also look on how regulators can contribute and others. In that context, we are working in different elements in tripartite contracts where we want to go also deeper in some specific areas. Tripartite meaning governments, industry, and key stakeholders like financial institutions. And we will start and launch that also under the Danish EU presidency. And my third and last point, equally important, is security. Security of supply and Repower EU. We just came out with a roadmap on phasing out Russian gas. As you know, after the crisis, there were the Repower EU to diversify more, to really look at the demand side and do more energy efficiency, but also speed up clean energy products and resources. And I think we made a huge progress all together in solidarity. But also we reduced, for example, the imports of Russian gas from 45% to 13%. So the wish of our latest proposals from 17th of June, legal proposals, is to get this lasting 13% of Russian gas to zero in the next 2 years. So the dependency on one single supplier have been proven under the crisis. So we have to diversify and see how we can also reduce, in particular, our dependence on Russia. In that context, I think we are also preparing the security of supply package, so another one, but important, for next year. So it's really about electricity and gas security of supply, and we have also already started with some reflection. We have a bit more time, so I think here also your input in the coming month is very much welcome. So to conclude, we are really focusing on implementation, on the Clean Industrial Deal and the action plan on affordable energy. We need a more competitive Europe, a sustainable Europe, a resilient Europe, and also where citizen and industry can rely on access to affordable and sustainable energy. Energy regulators, independent energy regulators, have a key role to play, and looking very much forward to the discussion. And again, happy birthday and good luck with the next 25 years. Thank you.
So we now have, as you can see here, a representative of the incoming Danish presidency, Christian Stenberg from the Danish Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Climate, Energy and Utilities.
Thank you so much, and I'm very, very pleased to be able to address you on this 25th anniversary. I wish you a very happy 25th anniversary, and it made me think that where will we be in 25 years? We will be in 2050, and that's the exact target where we'll be aiming for climate neutrality. So in another 25 years, we will be hopefully living in a completely decarbonized continent with a strong economy and a strong environment. But it's also a daunting task, and it illustrates a lot of work that needs to be done also with the energy sector, where the CEER will play a very important role in that. I very much regret not being able to be with you today. We are in the culmination of our preparations for the presidency that we take over next week, and the risk of strikes in Brussels airports made it difficult for me to risk being stranded in Zaventem airport for many days. I also regret not being able to be with you, not only because the conference is located in a wonderful museum that I would have loved to have sneaked out to have another look at. I have visited before, but also because I would very much have appreciated the opportunity to have a dialogue with many of you on the challenges ahead of us. And also because I believe that the themes that are raised throughout the conference are very, very important. How we empower consumers and how we have efficient markets, absolutely essential. How can we work with consumers and with markets to achieve our goals? And that of infrastructure goes without saying. That's really what binds us together and is a key element to reaching climate neutrality. So very much look forward to listening to those discussions. It's also a great pleasure to speak after Medschild. As you will hear, the incoming Danish presidency of the Council of the European Union is very, very closely aligned with the Commission. So I hope you'll bear with me. There'll be a lot of repetitions, but also take that as a sign that we are very closely aligned on this agenda. The Danish Prime Minister presented the Danish priorities, horizontal priorities for the Danish presidency, and they are exactly those of security, competitiveness, and green transition. And the green transition is very important, and we see that as being the engine and mutually supportive of achieving a greater security, strategic autonomy, and competitiveness. And energy is very, very central to this. It's central to reduce our dependence on external actors, to increase our strategic autonomy, but also a key ingredient in our economy. And really a key solution here is to produce lots of affordable energy that we can produce ourselves. In that way, we can both achieve increased competitiveness, greater security, and the green transition. And as you can hear, that approach aligns perfectly with what Metil just outlined. So we're very grateful that we will have a lot to work on during our presidency. There will be some legislation which we will be working on, but also working on the discussions on laying the foundations for what goes beyond our presidency. And our first priority will be that of the REPowerEU roadmap to phase out Russian gas and oil. Very, very grateful for the Commission's proposal. It's bold, but also absolutely necessary. We will do everything we can to bring about agreement among member states. We know it is a sensitive and difficult issue, and we work together with everyone to bring everybody on board on an agreement on that by October, and then proceed to trilogues with the European Parliament with the view to reaching a full agreement before the end of the year. Of course, that's phasing out lots of fossil energy, and then we need to phase in something new. And this is where clean energy is essential, and a very important part of that will be that of infrastructure, which will be at the very heart of our EU presidency. First of all, we look forward to the Commission's proposal on the Connecting Europe facility. Very important elements of that is on that of energy infrastructure, both electricity interconnectors, but also our hydrogen infrastructure in Europe, and in the future, how we also transport CO2 around Europe. Very, very important piece of legislation that we will also give full priority and try to bring as far as we can in the Council as possible. A second and linked priority will be that of the grids package. And I can't help but paraphrase Magritte and say that the grids package, that is not about pipes, but it's about cables. Cables are absolutely essential in bringing both security of supply to Europe, but also to bringing down electricity costs. That we, through increased interconnections, can ensure that we can help each other's security of supply, but also that we can bring the energy from where it's produced cheapest to where it is consumed. So absolutely essential, and a very important part of that will be to solve some of the problems related to financing and costs, but also to improving permitting procedures. What we hear from businesses and TSOs is that permitting procedures are carrying very, very long delays. It's slowing down the transition. But it's also bringing a lot of costs and risks into projects, and there we absolutely need faster permitting, also on both on infrastructure projects, but also production of clean energy. We will look forward to the Commission's proposal and look forward to starting negotiations and hopefully set that work on a good path by the end of our presidency. Looking forward, we also look forward to Commission's white paper on the future electricity market. I think that is also something that will be of great interest to CEER, starting the discussions of what is the next generation of challenges that we need to solve in our electricity market. Very interesting discussions and very valuable input from you members as well. Then also looking forward to the Commission's anticipated electrification roadmap. We will have discussions in the Council providing input to this. Why is electrification not happening? Do we need more electrification? What are the barriers that are impeding electrification from happening? What are the smart policies to promote electrification, especially in the electricity consuming sectors that need to transition? A lot of very important input there that we would look forward to from CEER as well. And finally, as Mechthild also mentioned, bringing us closer together in cooperation whether it's on tri-party agreements that Denmark has a strong history in. We'll be very much looking forward to working with the Commission on establishing such collaborative, innovative platforms, but also hosting the first or second meetings in the Energy Union Task Force is something that we look forward to. Very much want to work with all partners to conclude the legislation that's on the table, but also to set that direction for the future. The expertise of the regulators is absolutely essential. That the voice of consumers, very, very important, sometimes gets lost, but we absolutely need to have that at the heart of the discussion, but also, as was said in the introduction, all the balances that regulators know how to try to balance in achieving the cost-effective solutions for the future. So very much look forward to your input into all these important matters. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon and welcome once again in Brussels. I'm sorry not to be able to join you in this annual conference as it has always been the case, but both Commissioner Jørgensen and me are very happy you are celebrating this anniversary in a very special moment because our energy sector is undergoing unprecedented transformations. And as energy regulators, you have a central role to play to deliver on genuine energy union, as well as to address urgent and complex challenges facing our energy systems. This means more renewables, lower prices, greater system flexibility, better digitalization, a fully electrified economy, stronger interconnections, and modernized grids. We need to co-create an environment that leverages investments to match our capital needs for a future-proof energy system, to ensure the smart and efficient use of the grids to minimize overall system cost. For instance, by leveraging network charges to incentivize more flexibility and more optimized spatial planning. We need to promote energy storage deployment, an essential foundation for a resilient, affordable, and sustainable energy system. We need to empower Europeans by developing the new skills that are needed for better grid management, to safeguard consumers' rights and fair competition across the European Union, ensuring our transition is fair for all. This is why, at the very start of this mandate, we launched the Clean Industrial Deal and the Affordable Energy Action Plan to deliver on all these challenges. We cannot do this alone. Your work is essential in shaping a stable, transparent, and reliable regulatory environment that delivers on all these priorities. Thanks to your tireless commitment to advancing Europe's clean energy transition, we are already delivering progress. We can see the outcomes, we can experience the benefits, but still much needs to be done. Renewable electricity has already overtaken fossil fuels electricity generation. Just a month ago, our assessment on national energy and climate plans showed that we are well on track to collectively meet our 2030 targets, a 55% reduction in emissions and a 42.5% share of renewables. These are real successes, but we cannot stop. I look forward to continuing our close cooperation as we take the next steps in this journey, and I count on you to uphold this level of dedication as we are delivering on the European energy transformation being led by Dan Jørgensen. Together, I'm confident we can turn the vision of a clean, affordable, and secure energy future into reality. I wish you a productive and inspiring conference, and I look forward to the outcomes of today's important discussion. Thank you.
Very good. Good afternoon, everybody. Indeed, we've heard quite a lot of inspiring, guidance of what are the challenges, what are the priorities, and what is the path we should head on to try to achieve well, quite a few ambitious goals. And it's maybe not, just adding to what Annegret said earlier, another coincidence, that isn't exactly a coincidence, that we're having the event here in the Magritte Museum, which is the home of a very famous painting, you probably all would recognize it, called L'Empire des Lumières, the Empire of Light. And I very much hope, another ambitious goal, that the sessions that we have this afternoon will start to shed some light on these very issues, the challenges, the solutions, and the space that regulators play in achieving all of those different issues. So without further ado, I'll hand over to two fantastic ladies, directors each in the Austrian regulator for electricity and in the Irish regulator for consumer policy and protection. And they're going to talk to us a little bit about efficient markets and consumer protection and empowerment.
Thanks a lot, Natalie. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. And in fact, it's Karen's and my, pleasure to set the scene. And that's what we try to do by stepping back a bit on the history of the electricity system on my side, because I'm from the technical background. And if you consider that electricity is quite a young type of energy, and we started electrification with small islands in Europe from hydropower, electrifying a sawmill, a small village, things like that. Then these islands merged because we realized that it's more efficient and it's even cheaper to have joint reserves, to have a stable system, and to develop our electricity system, electricity networks further. We face an incredible pace of change in the electricity system in the last 25 years. So we came from, as I said, these island systems at the beginning, but also a very centralized system, huge producers into a now decentralized system, bi-directional system. Also on the market side, there was more or less no market in the beginning. Then we had local, national markets, centralized anyway, into this EU integrated market that we see now and that we need to further develop. And I wonder what all these changes on the system side, how did the role of the consumer change? What did it make with a typical electricity consumer?
Well, I think similar to what you have said, from really a passive customer that flicked on a switch and probably thought no more about their electricity than that. Probably got not a great service over the years, but we've moved away from that. We're moving to a world where we're actively encouraging customers to become active in that energy space, to, actively own their consumption and to be able to move that with levels of flexibility across the system. I think, look, there's challenges involved in that, and we really need to reach out to consumers and users of the system to make sure that they are, I suppose, they trust what information they're being given. They can see the benefit in moving their consumption. Communication will be key. The smart grids and smart meters will collate data like never before, and there is issues around that in terms of storing that data, making sure it's safe, and using that data to inform customers and provide the information that they need in order to make value choices for products and services that they can avail of. So I think that's key, and no longer will we have a passive customer. We'll have an active consumer, hopefully. We'll have aggregation, we'll have renewable energy communities, energy sharing, prosumers. The world is changing, and we've got to be ready for that, and I think the systems as well as the communication around that, and suppliers need to be ready for that change. So I think that's where we're going in terms of consumers. The other piece, I suppose, is around innovation and competition, and consumer protection is obviously key, but at the same time we need to balance that with that need to innovate, that need to provide competition in the market, because they can solve some of our problems. So there's those parts of it that that need to be dealt with, I suppose. The other is vulnerable customers. You know, we assume that, you know, we'll all move at the one pace, and that's not the case. And I use vulnerable in its widest sense. How do we make sure that no one is left behind? Because ultimately it feeds into the affordability piece. You know, it's all our responsibility, and certainly as NRAs and as a society. That leads into, I suppose, the complexity of network costs, allocation of costs, you know, who is left on the network when others have moved on. They're all knotty and difficult issues, but they're not insurmountable. And I think that is why it is so important that we come together to share the expertise and the experience that we have, so that we can solve these problems and for the better for the system, and ultimately for consumers.
Indeed, you mentioned complexity. So also the electrical system and the technical system is getting more and more complex, and we still need to advance it further. We need to optimize the system, and this brings a lot of challenges with it. All decarbonization measures, or close to all, I would say, have an impact on the electricity system, be it that we need more renewables in the system, flexibility related to that, be it that we have new appliances that need to be electrified, heat pumps, industrial procedures, all that things. And we need always to balance the cost and benefit, and how this would all fit together into a well-functioning system, because a technical system is a base for all the markets that build up, be it wholesale, be it retail, be it all these network services and all the other ancillary services markets that we see in future. And we also need to see that it's cost efficient, and that the costs are of the technical system are allocated where they are, well, best placed. And I wonder, with all these complexity, what would be the challenges for the consumers and also for the generators? So I would say for the grid users.
I think the system will have to work more closely together. Certainly the distribution system and the markets. I think the challenges, as you say, will be electrification. You know, electric vehicles. People who have solar panels and who use batteries, all of this requires electrification, and with that obviously comes decisions to be made. I think, as I've said, for consumers it's about information, it's about accuracy of information. Smart meters can go some way to doing that, but ultimately it's the supplier, the person that the consumer interacts with. And maybe there's third parties that can take some of that burden away from consumers, and I suppose, the inconvenience of having to deal with the suppliers. Sometimes third parties can step in and do that. So I think it's communication, it's data, it's trust, definitely for consumers, and ultimately they want to see the benefit. I think if prices continue to go up, it's a harder message to sell to the consumer. They need to see it in their everyday. And some will, and you know, some won't, and I think we'll have to think of it holistically, and I think that's why changes to the systems need to feed in a little bit closer, I think, to the retail piece, because they're much closer together now than they've ever been. I think they're the main things.
So we end up that security and trust is key, communication is key, data will really be a huge challenge, and with that I think we both are quite curious what the views and perspectives from the panel will be, and so we give the floor back to you, Natalie.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A lot of food for thought and reminders. Thank you, Christine and Karen. Maybe I'll take the chance to ask my panel members to join me up here. We may be missing one person, is that right? Cillian? Oh, okay, very good. All right, Agustin and Rosalind. Very good. I'm mobile, that's dangerous. Stage is a big place. So we have plenty of seats. Very good. Fantastic. Well, I think our scene setters, I don't know if that's an official term, but we've just coined it, they really painted a picture for us, not only of the past and how far we've come, but just how much still there is to do. Also in the system view, in a market view, and at the end of the day, or at the beginning, I don't know, it depends on your philosophy, it's the consumer. And I'm sure we all have different views on that question. But really there's a lot to digest, and also all of us have a different role to play to contributing to achieving some of these solutions and opportunities, whilst taking care that they don't turn into perversions or threats or disadvantages for certain types of consumers. So without further ado, introduce our three panel members. I think you see them larger in life up on the stage, and it really is we want to make sure we have a debate with a different perspective. So the consumer perspective, the policy-making perspective, but also the real life boots on the ground who interact with the consumers and provide these services. So we have a little bit of everything on our panel. I think we'll be surprised how much we align, in fact, on a lot of the questions. But without taking up too much of everybody's time, I wanted to kick off maybe with a first round. And maybe I'll start with Cillian. Is that all right? Okay, so I have a question here about how energy markets can be structured to better serve consumers, citizens, customers, network users, connection points, if we use all the jargon that we've seen over time. How can these markets be better designed to serve consumers whilst ensuring sustainability?
So, firstly, good afternoon. I'll say La Bretla Honedit, which is Irish for happy birthday to CEER. So, markets. I'm going to borrow a phrase we used a lot 3 years ago and say that we need an evolution rather than a revolution in terms of markets and consumer engagement. By and large, we think that markets are the optimal way, and we just need to tweak a few things so customers see the benefits. And a lot of what we need to improve are things which Mechthild has already touched upon. And there's probably four main things. I think the first, which is a no-brainer if we want to lower prices, is more market integration. If you look at the Draghi report, and if you take a macro perspective of Europe, we're very good wind, we're very good solar, we're very good hydro as firming costs, we have nuclear at 25% baseload. So we have a lot, but it's not all interconnected. And CEER talks about this 34 billion figure, which we know could be much higher if we force through more market integration. So I think that's the no-brainer, which we'd like to see more of. The second thing for customers, which is also a no-brainer, is lower taxes. We generally tax electricity more than gas, which is perverse. In Germany, you pay your television license with your electricity bill. We know all these things, they need to change. And two other things. I think something we also need to focus on is incentivizing flexibility for customer. So as the power sector, we will be dominated by variable renewables, and the cheapest way to do the transition is for the customer to be able to react in real time to the market signals. So that's what we say. And very last thing, we think short-term markets work pretty well, but we still need to develop more forward markets and long-term contracting around Europe. That's kind of the things we would ask.
Okay, very good. We'll probably have to unpack that a little bit as we go through the session, but for now, maybe I'll jump straight to Rosalind with, Agustin, maybe. Maybe I'll start with him. Leave the policymaker at the end. She's going to tell us all the answers. Agustin, what do you think are the biggest barriers, also thinking about what we just heard, the biggest barriers for consumer empowerment to participate in flexibility and engage in the market?
Indeed. Thank you very much, Natalie. And again, happy birthday also from my side. That's great to see all the progress that CEER has been making over the years. We have a wonderful cooperation as well, and using the words of Mrs. Global earlier, the importance of independent agencies. And that is what we also have appreciated a lot throughout the years of cooperating together. We're also halfway of implementation of our vision. We have a BEUC CEER vision, the 2030 vision, in which we identify key principles that should guide the development and the design of energy markets. And we adopted them, or we established them in 2020. And so much has happened since then. Our scene setters were saying earlier, how fast the world is changing. And all these changes are affecting directly energy markets, are affecting directly also how consumer reacts to energy markets. I remember, like 15 years ago when I started, in BEUC, I remember someone said, but the consumers only care when just put it on and off if there is electricity or not. But things have changed significantly because people care much more now. And this is because of different incentives, because of very high prices, also because of moving to more sustainable way of consuming, so on and so forth. And when we look at the barriers that consumers identify, the starting point is understanding how consumers behave and knowing that consumers are heterogeneous. Consumers have different expectations in relation to energy markets. Consumers behave differently. Consumers have different buying and purchasing power and different social economic realities. So you have people that own a house and can invest upfront on a heat pump, but you also have consumers that rent or that depend on social benefits. And in the cost of living crisis, this becomes more important than ever, because we know that a significant part of people's budgets go to energy costs. And when we talk about going to energy costs, it goes also to taxes. So here it's about also getting our incentives right. We also cannot underestimate that we are talking about very complex markets. People, it's difficult to understand what is behind an energy bill. For people, it's difficult to understand what are the advantages of switching when switching is essential for competitive markets. And in a liberalized energy market, competition is key, especially in markets with very high entry barriers. So here is where we need basically to pave the way and make it easier for consumers across the different categories of a spectrum of consumers and consumption behaviors in order to participate meaningfully in these energy markets. Just very briefly, in our principles, we have touched upon affordability, simplicity of information, protection against, for example, energy disconnections. These are many important progresses that we have made in the legislation. But there is a gap between what we have in our laws with what happens on the ground. And one of the things I think that you Karen mentioned earlier is that we need to show the benefits to people. We need to show them that the interventions that we do here at the European level has a direct impact in their daily lives. And how we materialize that? By bringing down energy costs, by making it easier for people to switch, by showing to those that are less favorable that there is something in it for them. And I think that is where we need to start our reflection, especially with the upcoming citizen energy package. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you very much, Augustine. Indeed, there's a lot of alignment as well, but still understanding how people interact or live with energy, which is also changing as we decarbonize, as we electrify, as we try to do lots of different things and bring people with us. And the challenge there is to bring people with us. And it is hard to understand the bill. With capacity charges, energy charge, VAT levels on this much consumption, VAT levels on the other part of the consumption, and by the way, the TV tax as well. So there's a lot that still has to be done to making it easier for us to navigate all of the options and obligations in the energy sector. And that brings us now to our third panel member, Rosalind. Exactly how can we, through policy, even though we have things on paper, how can we use policy to find that balance between markets, competition, liberalization, or even, as we were hearing earlier, security, affordability, sustainability, and consumer protection?
Yes, well, first of all, I'm really very, very excited to be here, and I'm going to say gelukkige verjaardag in Dutch, because I'm from the Netherlands, and I think it has been already, as you said, very inspirational, but we also heard already a lot of alignment in the messages. And if I understand correctly, you developed a vision in 2020, and I think now it's time that, we will really be delivering, as you said, on the ground. And I mean, I think for the European Commission it's very clear, and we have said it, I think also starting in 2020 more or less, that we need a citizen-centered energy transition. And I think we've made a lot of progress, including in the legislation, so I could not agree more with the statement that now we need to move from, the laws in the books to the real impact on the ground for our citizens. And this is something that we would like to achieve amongst others, because you have also heard from my colleague Mechtel that we have many initiatives in the pipeline, but I would like to zoom in a bit more on the Citizens' Energy Package. And a question that I get a lot is, will you propose new legislation with the Citizens' Energy Package? Well, obviously, we are still in the design phase. We have launched the open public consultation, which is open until the 11th of September, and I would like to invite all of you, please contribute to this consultation, help us to design a citizens' energy package that will deliver this impact on the ground. And I am a firm believer that we are all playing on the same team here. We are all Team Europe. So a call for action here. Please make sure that you help us get the citizens' energy package right. But for the moment, there is no plan to propose new legislation as part of the citizens' energy package. But of course, depending on your input, this may change. But I think it's also a big priority of this commission, this College of Commissioners. Our president has said it very clearly as well at the beginning of her mandate. We are now here to make sure that we focus on, first of all, staying course with the Green Deal, but then also delivering on the competitiveness of our European Union, and at the same time focusing now on implementation, implementation, and implementation, because we like 3 priorities. I think 3 key messages is always very important to remember. So in the Citizens' Energy Package, and I think a lot of issues that have come up in particular also in the scene setter by Karen and Christine is first of all affordability. We want to make sure that the energy transition is affordable, and the Citizens' Energy Package will be delivering on the also social dimension of the energy transition. And when we talk about affordability, obviously we're talking on the one hand about the most vulnerable in Europe, and we all know the numbers about the fact that energy poverty is still a reality also in our European Union. But at the same time, it's also, as you mentioned, about lowering the costs. So here, we go beyond the vulnerable consumers, but actually for all consumers, we want that they can reap the benefits from an integrated market and from the European Union. Because I still think sometimes, the European Union is taken for granted, and the benefits of why we actually have a European Union are not very obvious on day-to-day life. So I think we have a great opportunity here. Secondly, and this is also came up in our scene setter with the Citizens' Energy Package, we want to empower. And I think it was you, Karen, who said, the role of consumers has changed from, passive consumers to really more active consumers in this energy transition. So we want to use the Citizens' Energy Package to give the right tools, information, and advice to our citizens in order to empower them. And of course, their transparency and information and data play a very important role. And then lastly, with the Citizens' Energy Package, another very important point is also to protect consumer rights and to make sure that the rights are enforced. Switching has been coming up, so we are preparing secondary legislation on switching to make it really easier for the consumers to profit from the best offers. And studies have shown that this could save a lot of money for the households in the European Union. And maybe a last point that I want to mention, and that is also something that has already been coming up, so I feel that I'm a bit repeating here, but okay, and that is the building trust. I think this is also a very, very important aspect. Trust in a liberalized market, ensure that consumers understand their rights, can benefit, and then also, of course, that these rights are being enforced. So I think there's a lot of alignment here, but of course, it's very easy to say all this. And I think for us to collectively, the challenge will be in the Citizens' Energy Package to make sure that we get the right tools out there, the right collaboration to really, as you so beautifully said, deliver the impact on the ground. Thank you.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think we all very much agree that the toolbox is there. We have a lot of the powers and the design and the issues identified and legislated even, and now it really is a question of making them work and putting them in place at all levels throughout the market, and that is the challenge. We have, if you will, a rule book, but we're still not really playing the game fully according to those rules, and that's where we need to get. And just to pick up, I have to do the publicity and repeat, also on our vision with BEUC. Okay, it's already not 5 years old, but if you look at the text and if you look at the principles and you look at the sub-issues, they're still fully relevant. Not that we were geniuses as regulators and consumer bodies, but really it's still the same kind of challenges, the same kind of consumer priorities and concerns that you're always going to have in a way. They're intemporal and universal. And I think it's a good reminder that we have to aspire, which are our principles: affordability, simplicity, protection, inclusiveness, reliability, more than ever, and empowerment. And only all together with all of those aspects can we really, get to the next milestones that we're all hoping to reach. So that's, I think, just kind of it's not a sum up, but bringing together the different strands of our first round of questions. I now have a question actually for everybody. So we heard also a little bit about smart grids, smart meters, smart systems, data, digital future, and it's a lot of discussion now about what role these digital platforms and different kinds of providers and services can play in a positive way to promote this consumer engagement and participation and flexibility and responsiveness to price signals and hopefully lower bills. So maybe I'll open it, whoever wants to tackle that million-dollar question first.
Well, I mean, I can maybe start here, but I think there will be also, again, quite of an alignment. I think we need to reap the benefits of, what digital solutions have to offer. And I think, for instance, the digital tools, I mean, there's a lot of information out there for all the consumers. And I think, if we use digital tools to really, translate this raw data into clear, user-friendly insights for consumers, I think that would be, a very good first possibility of what we can do with these digital tools. And of course, also then these digital tools can be used to provide personalized advice to consumers. And for instance, through Horizon Europe, our European Framework Program for Research and Innovation, we are funding several projects where we are looking into innovative solutions of using digital tools to give real-time advice to consumers to really then reap benefits from the flexibility in the energy market. And one of the challenges that we are facing is that, once we have tested and demonstrated that these innovative solutions exist, the next step would be to scale up and roll out these solutions and get them deployed, everywhere in Europe. So I think, it's the one thing to develop them, but then the second thing is, how can we scale it up and roll it out everywhere in the European Union? And then I also think that, on the data and the data sharing and the interoperability of data is very well on our radar screen. And that's why we are also preparing, we are flooding you with policy initiatives, but we have a strategic roadmap on digitalization and artificial intelligence in the pipeline that we hope to publish in the first quarter of next year. And there was a bit of a competition because these are both in my directorate, the teams working on this roadmap on digitalization, artificial intelligence, and the Citizens Energy Package. So I made a bit of a competition who is first in launching the open public consultation. Well, now it's clear to all of you who has won this internal competition, but just to say that also the open consultation on the roadmap on digitalization and artificial intelligence is coming up, and there we will be focusing, amongst others, among making data interoperable across the European Union.
Jump in. Yeah, I totally agree on the potential benefits. For example, on personalized advice, we have some good examples from our members. For example, in Portugal, where they provide virtual advice, to people that might have different questions. Also, we see potentials in the development of one-stop shops that also can be provided via virtual means. So there is indeed a lot of many opportunities. However, we should not also lose sight of the fact that digitalization is a means to an end. So if we look at all the different principles that we have, all different objectives that we have been discussing, is how digitalization can help to materialize them. So for example, how digitalization can help us or help consumers to better understand the costs. What fantastic will be that we can have, a consumer can have an application where they can simply see how kilowatt hour turns into money. How much is it costing me at the end of the day, on a winter day? How much it costs me? These type of tools is what are going to really help consumers. It's very telling because it can help you also to manage your own household budgets. Also, when it comes to information, we know that there is a push to have more digitalized information for different reasons, which has its merits, but also we cannot forget of the importance of visualizing the information. Let's take the case of the energy label, or beautiful energy labels that we have in developing. People, when you go to a shop, you see your energy labels there. If you need to scan a QR code every time to see the energy label, it will not have the same effect as having our labels there. And I'm not saying that in the future we might not get to that direction, but yet now we are not there. And we still need to promote the benefits of energy efficiency of household appliances among consumers. And having the label there makes a big difference. Also, we should not forget and we should not get lost in the forest when we talk about digitalization of information. We need to see how this can be meaningfully useful for consumers.
Yeah, from my side, I would kind of separate the digitalization from the AI discussion. On the digitalization, we kind of see two main trends. The first is kind of price comparison, so you can have a clear view of supplier who's cheaper. And then the second is more having the apps to know what the price is at certain hours and reacting to that. And what we've seen during the energy crisis, I think at one stage in Denmark, 8 out of the top 10 apps downloaded were linked to energy and how you manage it. So that's kind of what we expect. On AI, I would just say this is something we're looking into a lot as Eurelectric now. And we get very different feedback. We work closely with EPRI, they're the kind of global power research institute. And what you see is when you speak to Europeans, it's all about incremental benefits. It's how you plan out the grid, this dynamic line rating, all these small things. When you speak to Americans, it's revolutionary. It's going to change the game. Everything's going to change. So we don't know what is true at the moment, but that's something we want to look into.
Absolutely, and I think also going back to something Agustin said is people are different and they experience things differently. So that interaction with platforms, with data, with information also has to be humanized and tailored to reflect all those differences, which is a minefield, in fact. And also people who are not digital at the end of the day. Let's not forget, many of us are not digital. So that's, I think, a big part of the overall picture that we have to keep in our sights as well. The consumer demographics, socioeconomics, and just preferences. And so that's a big deal. I think we have time now if we want to go back to any of the points raised in our first round. Maybe we give each other a chance. I know there was alignment, but that's a surface. We can dig a little deeper and try to get to know a bit more about the the different issues that are out there. This one about flexibility and price signals. Perhaps if one of you wants to pick up on that. Are consumers really willing to be flexible and to care about a price signal every 5 minutes? every 15 seconds. We have an article, we have a toolkit that says people can have multiple suppliers for exactly that possibility. Do they really want to do that? How do we convince them or interest them? Anybody want to pick up on that one, Agustin?
We say something on that one because we had very intense discussions also with our members about it, especially after the energy crisis. People are concerned. So how much are going to end up paying? And of course, fixed tariffs are a synonym of tranquility, but might not have the full. You might not get the full benefits. And when we were talking before about how consumers are heterogeneous, so the offers should be heterogeneous. So there are consumers that, because of their needs, might feel more comfortable with a standard, fixed tariffs. There are others that could take advantage of flexible tariffs, but also they could be somewhere in between. There could be a possibility to have flexibility within certain parameters that can also give you some tranquility as in the household. So here, when we come to the design of the tariff offers, we should think about what are the expectations of consumers, bearing in mind the circumstances that they have to navigate in the last 5 years, because that has certainly affected significantly the way they perceive the offers. And let's face it, people tend to go for safety at the end of the day. But also we need to show the benefits, because in flexibility there are a lot of benefits, especially if your households are ready for flexibility. But that might not be the case for everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would just say it is in consumers' interest. It makes the transition much cheaper. I think, if you look at EVs, we did a big study in February. If you have 30 million EVs on the road, you have 114 terawatt hours of flexibility. That is a huge deal. That makes the transition much cheaper. So you need to bring consumers with you. I agree with Augustin. It's about finding the sweet spot between exposure and protection. What we would say in general, though, is social policy is the best way to protect customers. So have the market, give the market signals, and then use social policy to protect customers. We don't like what some member states do with regulated prices. I don't want to name member states, but places like Hungary, that is not the way to go in our view. We also see worrying news from places like Norway. Generally, a member state with low prices incentivizes flexibility. They're going a bit the other way. So this is kind of not going the way we would like it to go from your electric perspective. And to summarize, incentivize flexibility, but use social policy to protect certain segments.
Yeah, actually, that's something economic regulators have long defended, the importance of social policy, because if you have vulnerability issues in energy, you probably have them in other sectors, water, food, all kinds of social issues, and not limited to just energy. So that, I think, is also an important consideration in all of our policies. But as the affordability issue becomes even more critical, it's also more political, and so there is a challenge there to finding the right solutions in times of, if you will, crisis, when your citizens want an answer. And we can all understand we lived that very situation not so long ago. So it's definitely something that we have to deal with. We have a little bit more time. I've got, sources telling me to keep on the clock, but we do have time for questions from the audience. So I don't know if I can pass one of these microphones. And then we can see if anybody out there wants to put a question to our distinguished panel. I see already in the front row and in the back as well. All right, well, let's start here first, please, and then we have another regulator halfway back on the right, stage right.
Thanks for this very interesting discussion.
Let's turn him on. Here we are. Well, I yield the floor to the...
Thanks for the very interesting discussion. Rosalinda, you challenged us. You said we don't necessarily want to introduce new legislation under the Citizen Energy Package unless we convince you otherwise. What if we would simplify? So it's not really new legislation, but we would simplify some of the existing legislation, especially for consumers. Some of these concepts like energy sharing, energy communities, I don't know if there is an opportunity there to simplify and what the rest of the panel thinks of that, like a mini public consultation.
Shall I answer immediately? Yeah, thank you for that. And of course, it's always smart to a politician. Well, I'm not really a politician. I'm a civil servant, but I tend to think, and I tell my team, we are not civil servants because this is a term that is a bit old. We are policy entrepreneurs. But it's very smart from you to pick up on another political priority of this college: simplification. So very well done. So obviously, we would be very open and interested if there are concrete suggestions to simplify the proposals. I have to say at the same time as well that obviously, the way that we have our legal acquis here, this is a directive that needs to be translated into national laws. So the question is, what will be the impact of simplifying an EU law, or should we rather look at how things are being translated into the national laws? But that is an open question. But I certainly think, you hit again, a political priority for the Commission, competitiveness, simplification. So please, by all means, do come forward with proposals. Thank you.
I will say, be aware what you wish for. When it comes to simplification, I know that this is a new mantra, simplification, competitiveness, but what we have been asking is to be extremely careful. Simplification that doesn't have to lead to deregulation. And sometimes this is not always been the case. So I would say when we bring to, I would rather stick to, let's try to implement what we have, get it right, do not open discussions that we have very, very recently. If some legislative interventions are needed, and perhaps they will be needed, very targeted and in line with the objectives that we have already been agreed. But when it comes to the simplification agenda, I will call for caution there.
May I quickly react to that? Because full agreement there, and absolutely true. There is indeed, a fear that the whole simplification agenda will lead to deregulation. Just to reassure you, we have no intention to deregulate at all. But we do want to make the life simpler where we can, for our member states, for our businesses, and for our consumers. And our Commissioner for Energy and Housing, Mr. Dan Jurgensen, has announced that we will come forward next year with an energy simplification omnibus. One thing that is very high on our radar screen in the context of the simplification exercise is the governance regulation. Because if you look at the energy acquis, there are a lot of reporting obligations in different pieces of energy legislation. So we will use the opportunity of the revision of the governance regulation towards the end of next year to at least zoom in on simplifying reporting obligations. But as said, if there are other impactful possibilities to simplify without deregulating, this is also something that we would be very happy to look at.
Very good. Yes, we don't want to go back to the days of the Wild West, anarchy. So keep the structures, but make them easier, less redundant, and also less overlap, and make sure that they're not counter designs that somehow contradict each other. So that kind of simplification, I think we all agree, would be very useful across all the energy and maybe beyond, things that interact with energy, as we try to think a bit more about sector integration, also from the consumer side, because we all have to deal with transport and waste and our energy use as well. So it's all connected. Right, we have another question, I think, towards the back.
Hi, Jim Gannon from the Commission for Regulation of Utilities. We have a very direct relationship as regulators with those who participate in the wholesale market. We also have a very direct relationship as regulators with those who participate as transmission system operators and distribution system operators. Very direct. We set incentive signals and they follow them. With consumers, we act through intermediaries, and they are the supply companies who operate in a liberalised market. So my question is, how do we get these suppliers who are very good at getting people to buy new products as exercised around people wanting to switch to more dynamic tariffs? Do we concentrate enough on the incentives for suppliers to get consumers to switch to more flexible tariffs and to pass on those rewards, especially if for private sector supply companies it may be cost neutral or cost negative for them to do so? And it is just an intermediary or an interlocutor that we don't often hear from here, and where I think we really need to activate them, because as regulators, we do not have that direct relationship with, in our case, the 2.5 million households on the island, if I can put it that way. So how do we activate the suppliers to get as exercised as we are about time of use, flexibility, and selling that product to what is a consumer?
Okay, so maybe we can start with the association that includes suppliers, and they can give us their thoughts on that, because it is a challenge, you know. What is the business model that suppliers have going forward?
Yeah, so first I would say I would recommend, so as Euroelectric we have a new president. Previously we focused very much on grids. A new president supports him, focused on engaging with customers. And he's got a big thing. He wants us sitting around the table, engaging with customers, and particularly on the retail side. We launched a few weeks ago our 5 commitments, which is a follow-up to our 15 pledges study. And that basically, as part of that, we did a big survey with a huge amount of customers looking at, you know, what can be done to incentivize it. So we would be of the opinion that we're doing a lot and we're improving, and that's the feedback we get. We do see that 30% of people have changed their supplier in the last 2 years. If you feel, okay, more needs to be done to force suppliers to offer more of these contracts, and that's a discussion we're very willing to have, but we are of the feeling that we're improving on that front.
Something briefly. Switching is extremely easy in the energy sector. In terms of the legislation that we have facilitating this, the obligations that are on suppliers to provide the necessary information for the consumers to switch, but it's not happening at the scale and the speed that we would like to. It's true, and I was at the conference of Euroelectric, you know, the results were presented, and while one see an improvement, probably also linked to the energy crisis that we had, we are not there at the level, you know, to really stimulate competitive energy markets. So clear there is something there preventing consumers from doing that. Perhaps it's a matter also of showing the benefits of switching. What would it mean switching to one provider to another, or to switching offers, you know, within the same provider or with another provider? So there are some behavioral elements that we need to work on. We need to better understand why consumers are not switching, and what can we do in order to show better the benefits of it.
I would just say from the consumer side of things, in terms of consumer protection, I think it's better post-crisis than before crisis. In terms of the disconnection bans, that legislation is better. In terms of the hedging requirements on suppliers, they're much stronger than before. I think if you look at the rapporteur, Mr. Cazares, he came at it from a very social angle, and I do think customers are much better protected under the new electricity market design than the previous version.
Very good. So once again, we go back to the toolbox and the things being in place for us to deliver some of these things. And behavior is one of those key issues. And what motivates people often is our wallet, but not only. There are lots of behavioral studies out there, and we probably need a lot more, actually, in the energy sector. But they show different responses according to cultural, social norms. There's a very famous old, I think it was in California, how to save money and how to save energy. It wasn't the money, it was because your neighbor had managed to save more than you. And that was enough of a competitive urge. Bob can do it, I can do it. So I'm going to beat him. And it's a real thing. You have to really understand people and what drives them, and how they want to interact with energy and with any product. So I think that's something we can all take away. Are there any more questions? I think they have time for one more from the audience. Okay. I don't see any hands raised. The lights are pretty bright, so could be me. Okay, very good. So then maybe between us we can continue a little bit, one more idea in terms of market functioning. You were talking about different market models, different products. Is it that suppliers identify that consumers don't want the products, or is it just not finding a way of making those different types of services really an added value, a benefit for the companies? Where is that missing, the gap? Is it the consumer who doesn't want the product, or is it the product that's not going to, doesn't have a solid case, business case?
I think going back to what we were saying earlier is about understanding what is in the offer. And for example, flexibility. It's true there are a lot of opportunities, flexibility. You can actually save a lot of electricity and money, but your household needs to be ready for flexibility. So you need to have a heat pump, you need to have devices that actually, you need to have a smart meter in the first place. I'm still waiting for mine. And so there is, of course, the question of the rollout of smart meters in Europe in a uniform manner. And let's face it, this flexibility, is designed for those consumers that are ready for it, and will coincidentally be those that, are the most affluent of our society. But we still need to think about this other part, big part actually, of our European population, that could benefit from flexibility, but they depend on someone else to do it, which is, for example, the landlord, the owner, not to make the upfront investment. So it's, of course, the whole question about the social policies that we were talking before, and how we can connect that to these new tariffs or new models of pricing in order so they can benefit mutually.
Yeah, I would just say, obviously, with a lot of these things, I think breakthrough companies make a big difference. I think Octopus Energy in UK are very successful at kind of coming to the customers. When you're in UK, they're often on the streets and saying, okay, this is what we do. If you work with us, then we'll take care of a lot of stuff. We'll make it simpler for you. And maybe we need more Octopus Energies around the world, particularly in this part of Europe. I think that would help a lot. To some extent, there's also incentives and technologies. So I talked about EVs, 30-minute EVs, it's a huge potential vehicle to grid, but that is not in place at the moment. And it's not just technology, it's also incentivized. We have to incentivize people across the ecosystem that's in their interest. So if you're making EVs yourself, you don't necessarily have that incentive. So we kind of have to look at all those things and have an ecosystem approach where everybody benefits from providing this flexibility.
If I might just add to all this, I mean, and again, we've talked about it before. I mean, we have the toolbox, and now we need to make it work on the ground. And I think we really need to start thinking creatively, like how can we now make sure that things are being rolled out and happening in practice, and consumers' behavior is changing. And as came up in the discussion, consumers in the north of Europe may behave differently than in other parts, in the south. So I think there's not probably a one-size-fits-all solution. And I think one of the tools that was mentioned also in the Affordable Energy Action Plan, and it was also mentioned by Christian earlier, are these tripartite contracts. So kind of like innovative contracts where we bring together different players on the market, including the governments, could actually also be looked at in the context of the consumer market, to see if we can think of some new innovative ways to deliver on the ground. Because I think from the European level, the framework is there, and as we said, we want to keep it, and we want to keep also the regulatory stability. So now it's a matter of really translating this on the ground, and translations should probably not be the same everywhere in the European Union.
Absolutely, and I think on that point, municipalities, local government, local initiatives have a big role to play. Also in engaging in a conversation with consumers, explaining things, and providing new opportunities, especially for the more vulnerable members of those communities. So there's a lot there as well to explore. I think the alarm's going to go off any second on this phone. So with that, I don't want to keep everybody from their mid-afternoon coffee. We have, I think, outside is set up a coffee break, and I've been asked to invite everybody back at 4:15. So enjoy, and we continue shining a light on these questions in panel 2. See you soon.
Next week or in 2 weeks?